Hello and welcome back to PA Chuck Up. I'm your host Manny, and today we have Pam. How we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you? Thank you for having me.
No, it's all good. Obviously, we've kind of spoke before when I was across there in Austria, and again, I love the stadium, so I was a big fan again showing around and touring the place. So, if you just to give us a little bit of information on who you are and what you do.
So, my name is Paiam. I currently work as athletic trainer for Austria Wien, which is a football club, soccer, whenever you may be, a football club in Austria, based in Vienna. We play in the first Austrian Bundesliga, and yeah, I've been here for the past with the first team for the past year and a half, so a season and a half. My first full season is coming to an end now, and I've been at the club for 3 years almost. I used to play myself for the academy of the club, and yeah, that's about it. What I do right now.
Fair. So, if you just give us a little background on like how you got to the position that you're in, obviously, what kind of education and what steps did you take to make it into the club that you played at?
Yeah. Do you want the long version or the short one?
We've
Because
got time. Let's go.
no. So yeah. So basically, I used to play for the academy, as I said. I played just. I didn't even play because I was injured the whole time, which brings me to my profession now. But I was here for a full season when I was 17, so about 10 years ago. And yeah, my football career didn't turn out great. A lot of injuries, but it wasn't because of that. I was just my mindset wasn't right at that point. I preferred other stuff to do other stuff than take care of my body and of playing football. So yeah, I decided if football is not going to work out and I wasn't enjoying it as much, then actually I wanted to go to sports psychology, into sports psychology first. So that was my plan. And in Austria, you there is no bachelor's for sports psychology. So if you want to do it, you have to do the masters, and to do the masters, you have to um, either do a bachelor's in psychology or sports science, which I decided to do sports science afterwards because it just looked more fun. To be honest, there were just like nicer subjects. You got to do like you had volleyball as a course, like, and you would get
Nice.
credits for it. Like there were it was obviously you still had like subjects like biomechanics and everything that were difficult, but I was like, sports science sounds more fun, so I'm gonna go that way. At the time, I just had a regular part-time job, but I wanted to work in an environment or in a field of something that related to my studies. I actually never wanted to become a strength and conditioning coach. I was like, I'm gonna go sports psychology. I don't want to be a fitness coach. So what I did is became a fitness coach because it was the only part-time job besides studies
Mm.
that I could have done at the time. I did my fitness trainer license, which is something you can do in Austria. I did that and started working as a fitness trainer. I started enjoying it, uh, but I was working a lot with the general population, like with Gen Pop, and it wasn't as fun. It was nice. I was enjoying it, but it wasn't as exciting. It wasn't like really me. So that's where I was like, okay, maybe I should go more into professional sports or just work with athletes. And then at the same time, I still had some contacts to this club from my academy time, and I knew some of the players and everything who made it pro. And I hit up my fit athletic coach from academy from back in the day and asked him for an internship. But again, I wanted to do an internship in sports as a mental coach or sports psychologist. But got an
Mm.
email back. They were like, there is no position or no internship available as that, but we need someone in the sports science department as an intern. I was like, I'll take what I can get. So that's how I entered the sports science world. Um, it just kind of went together. So I started working as an intern for a year, for a season for the second team. And on the side, I was still working as a fitness coach, but now I was working with more athletes. I started working with basketball players, American football players, semi-pro, pro football players. I started working with grapplers, wrestlers, track and field athletes, and yeah, that went hand in hand. So I was working with more. So I just kind of entered the whole like sports world and athletics world that way in practice. At the same time, I was finishing my sports science bachelor. I had my fitness and functional trainer license. Then end of the season, I was offered to after my internship was done, I was offered to become the women's first team athletic coach. I was very happy. Like I got the job. At the same time, my individual coachings with athletes, different athletes, they became even better, like more higher profile athletes, like national team, Olympic, Austrian Olympic team, track and field, basketball national team players, pro like it kind of became just professional
Mm,
athletes. At the same time, while I was doing the women's team, I did that for half a season, and then in January there was a change in the men's first team coaching staff, and yeah, I was asked if I wanted to do it, and if like they gave me the promotion, and yeah, so that was January 2023, and since then, and then I made the step to the men's pro team, which was a huge step at the time, or is a huge step. I was 26. I'm 27 now, so it's and at the time I didn't even like I was still writing my bachelor thesis when I got the job. So it was a huge step in my career. No, like it definitely it was a huge step. Like kind of fast forward in my career. So
yeah.
yeah.
With the sort of progression and having multi sports going on at the same time, how how do you manage to get yourself out there and sort of market to these different athletes in Austria?
Um, so I am very lucky in that sense that a lot of my friends from back in the academy day are pro athletes because the school we used to go to. So it's a school for young prospect athletes. So
Mm,
they're not pros yet, but it's very similar to the student athlete program that we don't have in Europe. You have in America. So we had like in academy, for example, you have in the morning training and then you go to school. So it's the only school that does that here. And it wasn't just football players, there were like basketball players, American
mm,
football players, and so on. And just yeah, athletes, young athletes that have a professional training regime but are still in school. And yeah, I used to go to that school. So I know a lot of people. And
athletes. Yeah.
yeah, I know a lot of people. I know a lot of athletes and a lot of talented athletes who made it pro. And when I started out, I was just like doing like training my friends for free as well. I was like, let me just post it on Instagram, and I made a Instagram as for my like a professional Instagram, like for my job, and started posting stuff there. And then word of mouth, even more friends asked, "Hey, I've heard that you're doing that," and that just kept rolling. And I'm telling you, the biggest thing is word of mouth.
Yeah.
If you do a good job, if it looks nice, it's word of mouth. Like especially in
Yeah.
football, like if you get one player to come to you and he's happy, every like they just do what like they ask, okay, I need to do some gym work. Where are you doing yours? And they're like, yeah, I'm doing it. Is it good? Yes, that's it. Like it goes so quick, and
Mhm.
yeah. So I used those contacts plus social media plus word of mouth, and yeah,
Yeah.
it it just kept rolling and rolling. It went so quick. Yeah.
I've got kind of a question that I think is kind of perfect for you. So going from the being an athlete in football and then being a coach in football, how did that mindset change from I'm an athlete, I need to do S&C, or how much S&C was there for you as a young athlete in football?
Um, I had my first SSC coach is my boss now, so my mentor now. So my first
Mm,
ever gym coach, fitness or whatever you want to call it, first ever athletic coach I had is my mentor now. And it was very like that. He was just with the team I was with for a couple of months, and then I got another one, also great. So I've been very lucky with the SNC coaches that I've had until now. His name, so my mentor Christian Puchinger, and then I had Thomas Schwarz. Both of them great coaches and very knowledgeable, very competent, and also just made made SNC fun. So I had a very good experience when it came to that. Also, as a young athlete in football in Europe, you're not guaranteed that you're gonna get a lot of SNC. It's like, and I think the reputation SNC has in football is more like just the running and the football part, like gym work and all.
So that was the second part of the question, is because
Yeah,
we've spoke about this and we're aware that football isn't big for the S&C.
yeah.
How have you found being an athlete and then transitioning into another coach where you're having to deliver the sessions?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult because, as I said, like for me, my time in academy, I had a great program, like even SNC program, but I was there for a year. So, and I kept playing for 3, 4 more years where I had none, zero. And I mean, I played at a lower level by then, but it was still zero. And I think I think there's still um, a lot of potential that you can get out in football and from football players. And I honestly, at the time, I didn't see the importance, or I didn't value it as much. The SNC generally, I was young. I was just like,
Mm.
I'm playing football to have fun. It's like lifting, yes, cool, just for the aesthetics. At the time it was just more like, all right, summer's around.
So
Like,
do you think there's a lot of that where the gym is just seen as an aesthetic thing in
yeah,
food?
100%. They see it as that, and we'll get to that as well, because when they think in football, mostly, not everyone, obviously, and it's going better, but mostly the reputation is, if you talk about lifting, they think like, if you're like lifting gym, they think 3 times 12 bodybuilding type of programs, hypertrophy only. Like that's what their mind goes on right
Mhm,
away. So it's definitely that, which was also for me. And I think that the transition now and how it kind of changed my perspective was obviously during the internship and having the right mentor, but also working with a lot of different athletes from different sports, that
mhm.
not just football players, like working with a shot putter, track and field. He's amazing. Like, they lift so much, but it's the sheer strength and power they have. Or working with a basketball player, or where you have a lot of more jumps and landings you have to deal with. I think that helped me a lot, and like broadened my horizon a
Yeah.
lot when
So
it
how
comes
do you
to.
create that buy-in with your football athletes, and how does that differ to the other athletes that you have in the gym?
Um, so right now I'm almost strictly working only with football players. Like, I don't have time. Like, I only work with the team, maybe a couple of individuals where I do mostly remote work. But so right now it's only football players. But the buy-in, I think one thing is being able to communicate well. Like, you can be as
Mm.
competent as you want to be. You can be a great coach. You can have a lot of knowledge. If you cannot teach, educate, if you cannot communicate it the way they understand, not the way that you want
Yep.
to bring it across, but the way your athletes understand, you're not a good coach. I don't care how much competence and knowledge you have. You're not, as a coach. You're not good. Maybe you
Mm.
can become a researcher or whatever. But I think I have, again, for me, it was an advantage that I'm young, and I knew a lot of the players already, so I speak the same language, so to say. Like,
Mhm,
the way I talk, the way I dress, the way I am, they can identify themselves with me. So when I say something, I can say it in their language so they understand me and they believe me. So that, I think, helped a lot with the trust me, and I think that helped a lot with the buy-in. I've been also lucky to have both the coaching staff, again, um, my mentor, and also some of the older players, some of the leadership players in the dressing room, be like they wanted to
mhm.
implement a good gym or athletic culture. It was not hard. Like, they were looking for it. It was not hard to get that buy-in from them. So that makes things also a lot easier for me if I have like the leaders and I have the all the players and
Yeah,
generally those guys on my
you brought
side.
up you brought up a
th-
really good point, and it's the researcher versus coach.
Yeah,
And it's this notion that you can have a piece of paper, you can have all the pieces of paper that you want, but that doesn't necessarily make you a great coach.
no,
And it's so much living in the articles compared to seeing what actually works in real life. Like a normal, if we take periodization for example, if we take that and apply it, it could be the best periodized program in the world, and that you
yeah,
might have the best program in the world. But if your athletes have a quick turnaround in a game or have something that doesn't quite align with their schedule, that's not
yeah.
getting fault.
Nah, I'm happy you brought up periodization as an example. I don't know if you're familiar with a football season, and then if you compare the days they have to train and what they have to do and how much they have to do, uh, and then compare them to like the periodization models that you get at uni or like when you get certification, it's like never,
It doesn't work.
never. Yeah, it's the like if they are a full-time gym athlete, then yes. But if
Mhm,
like how much like the amount of time they spend on football training, which should be the priority.
mhm. We also spoke about that is although gym is important, but they're in their sport for a reason, so we need to get them to play as well. But it's finding
Yeah,
that balance on when can we get them to develop them and sort of build out their physical abilities, and when do we
yeah,
just like maintain.
100%. I think I don't like it with strength and conditioning coaches or athletic coaches, whatever you want to call them. They take their job like they prioritize it too high. Like
Mhm,
we are important, but we are not that important. Like athletic gym strength is important, but we are not the most important. Like we should realize that them playing their sport and training their sport is way more important. We are accessories, and strength
mhm,
training is accessory. Like we are doing this so that they can build tolerance to do that. This is number one. We are number two, and we have to get we we have to get whatever time that they give us. And
mhm.
as long as you don't accept that, I think, and you have to. I mean, especially in the football world, you have to kind of accept it. There is no other way.
Yeah, I do think there's a difference in cultures as well in S&C. Like the stuff that I've been used to, we'll say S&C plays a little bit of a bigger importance than just secondary, but that's because I've been to Division One stages and
Yeah,
like more Scottish, British development squads. So there's a little bit more emphasis placed on that, and there's more time in the gym. But again, you only get better at your sport if you perform your sport. Like
yes,
you can be the strongest, fastest, jump the highest, bench the heaviest, but you could be a shit athlete. That
yeah,
just because all those metrics fit in the gym doesn't mean you're going to excel in the field.
yeah,
So it's finding that balance of right. So let's get you prepared physically to go in the gym
yeah.
and then go out and perform your best because you still need that IQ to be like, okay, if I'm dribbling the ball, probably best I don't look at my feet and look at
Yeah,
what's in front
exactly.
of me.
Yeah. Or like you're going for a header and you're like, okay, how do do that? Like
How do I jump?
how do I jump? How do I land? And you're gonna be you're gonna be a shit football player, and that's not what we want. And yeah, definitely a difference in culture. I think difference in sports as well. Like it can be
Mhm,
in Scotland or England or wherever. And if you're in football, the culture is definitely different than the same countries, and if you're in rugby or American football or basketball or whatever or ice hockey. Yeah, it's definitely a culture thing. I think in football we do, or again, when I say we, or just I'm generalizing the culture. It's not everywhere. There are a lot of great practitioners and a lot of people who do it greatly, but just generalizing it, I think there's a lot of things we do right
mhm,
and a lot of things we do wrong, and a lot of thing, yeah, and a lot of things that other sports and other cultures they do right, and other things that they might not do as well. So I think it's important to be open minded, and to be able to self-criticize and to be able to look at your work and be like, okay, this and this are working, this is not great, and then try to, do the good things that are in the culture, keep doing them, and maybe the things that are not great, try to get inspiration or try to learn from different cultures and come up with your own style of
Mhm.
coaching that works for you and for your team the best. Because again, even in the same sport, not every team is the same. So I think to find the right process where it's holistic and you have you try to have a good balance of everything in there. I think should be that's the most
100%.
important thing.
We previously discussed this as well, is that notion of taking elements that work for you from different types of programming and periodization blocks and whatever else exists out there. So creating this hybrid coaching method that best suits you. I think that's the best thing that I found within my coaching, at least, is like, yes, such and such does a really good job at this, say, periodizing block, but I have athletes that have quick turnaround, and every competition that they're in is major. Like that could get them to the next step.
Yeah.
So how do I properly peak and maintain my athletes based on that? And it's having that, again, it's controlling your ego a lot of the times and just being like, okay, I need to tame down. I'm not that key component that gets them to the next stage. So let's do our job really well so they're at least prepared to do their job. And in saying that, how do you build out their seasons and programs based on this like made hybrid periodization block that you've created?
Well, I think in football, if you have a so we do periodization, load management. Like I think these are the three pillars that if you do them well throughout the season, you you're doing a good job as a strength and conditioning. One is periodization, making sure you have like that, and these are the things that you have to also do with the head coach. You're not working alone. You're within a coaching
A
staff and a
team.
coaching
Yeah, yeah.
team. So you have to be able to do that within a team, outside and
Great.
also inside. Yeah, and in football, like I was most amount of time is on the field. Like even training, it's it's the field work that you do. So having a periodization for that, both both a weekly periodization to a monthly one, like season one, and just being able to do the periodization according to the games you're gonna play, how many games you're gonna play, what game, when is your game on that week. If you're gonna play multiple games per week, I think that is very important. That's one of the pillars. Then you have load management to make sure how much run, especially the running load right now in football. As you can see, there are so many ACL injuries and so many big injuries happening and long-term injuries happening in football, and it's mostly because of the amount of running that they're doing. Like the amount of games they play per season is always get increasing from a younger age, and that just being able to manage that within a team, I think, is very important, and it's a whole whole thing by itself right now, and it's going to increase even more. So being able to load manage the players within trainings, even just giving them like a break, like just if they have been playing a lot and training very intensive and everything, just take that player out of a training for one day. Just tell them today you stay inside, go to the physios, maybe do an upper body session. Just don't come out. Like stuff like that. Just being able to manage it through the data that we have, like the running data and everything through GPS that we do. So that is the second pillar, and then the third pillar is our strength program, being able to have a complete strength program that is also individualized for each player. It plays a big role, and by a complete program, I mean a program where you have max strength, speed strength, like high forces, rate of force development, plyometrics. Then you have your prevention stuff, like the stuff that usually players struggle with, um, making sure that that is also periodized well with the football periodization that you're doing, that they match as well. But also throughout the week, they also fit the strength periodization that you want to do, like speed first, then strength, then endurance and stuff like that. Making sure they get deloads, making sure they you build them up, making sure you get different cycles, right? I think so. it's a lot. Like we can go through one pillar for a
Mm.
whole podcast session, but just I think if you take care of these three pillars when it comes to planning out a season, especially the most important thing, all of them to accordance to the games you're going to play, either within a week or in the next 4 weeks and all. I think that's the most important thing for me to keep for us to keep the athletes healthy because that's our number one priority, right? Keep them healthy. If I've kept them healthy, I'm happy.
Yeah, the coach Mark has a great saying, and it's you make up 10% of an athlete's week, and the rest of the 90 is whatever they want to do. So we've got that 10% to get them strong enough and able to perform enough so that they don't ruin it in the rest of the 90%.
Yeah,
And it's just
and
that.
100%. And it's also our job to educate them on what they should do for those 90%. Like if I can, I've seen like sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. 'Cause I'm not a I'm not a prophet. So yeah, like some players they will do it, some players they won't, some players they believe me, some are just like, nah, it's not that important. I'm just like I don't care. I function different, which is true. Not everyone should have the same process. But if I can get an athlete to sleep 8 to 9 hours per night, every night, listen, my job, like I think that's like as
Gets
we
made
said, that
easy.
90%, yeah, that 90%, man, like most of it is done. If I can get him to also eat well and make sure, okay, on some particular days he doesn't do a lot of stuff like activities outside and stress free and he's just chilling. Hey, listen, that athlete, I would invest all my time and energy in him. And there are a few that it just comes natural to them, and then you see they play about 40 games in a season and football games in a season,
Mhm.
and they have no problems.
Yeah, that's something that I kind of wanted you to take a deeper dive in is how do you manage their running loads? I know you mentioned GPSs and tracking that kind of data, but how is that managed with the amount of games that they have, and how do you then supplement that in preseason or in season?
Yeah, so it's like the running load is all through the GPS data that we get, and we get you get a lot of different metrics, and we have a few that is important to us that we use to manage the loads. You have total distance, so
Full distance. Yeah,
yeah, so you
sorry.
have total distance, which is the overall, like, which is the volume. We see it as the volume of the running they're doing. You have acceleration, decelerations. You have high metabolic loading distances. You have high speed runnings. You have zone 5, zone 6, which are different zones of like different this amount of distances you've done in a particular speed.
Hmm.
So we use and we use this data, like these metrics, to to prioritize or like to manage the load within the days throughout the week and the match. And then so if you want to overload, deload, so basically what we all know about periodization in strength training, when you're getting ready for a competition and you're like kind of overloading, like progressive overloading, you can do the same in preseason with the running loads. So slowly building up, getting to a high, and then a week before the season starts, you have a deload, for example, or there are different ways you can do that. But we use those metrics to manage different phases of the season. Like for example, now end of the season, you're just doing tapering, so you want to keep the volume as it. You have like three weeks left. You're not gonna get a lot out of players. They're already fit. Like you cannot boost their
Hmm.
fitness anymore. They've been training almost for a whole year. Like you cannot get anything out of them. And then the only thing you can do is just managing their fatigue, that they're not as fatigued. So for example, you taper the last 3 weeks, reduce the volume, keep the intensity high. The same thing you would do in strength training as well. So what we just do with these metrics. So I think
Yeah.
that should.
What's some like drills or sort of specific things that you do to make sure that they're getting the same load or preparing for that game load during the week?
Yeah, so we want to get all our conditioning and all of our running loads through like as much as possible. You cannot get all of them, but as much as possible through football. So
Mm,
through playing football, because it's a difference if you run 10 kilometers in a game or if you just 10 kilometers running. It's a whole different
ball game.
physiology. Yeah, it's a whole different physiology. And you know the saying, if you want to get faster in your game, play your game more. If you want to get better, if you want to have better endurance in your game, play your game long. We want so we it's the best way to have it. So we want to get that as much as we can. So we do that through small-sided games. So different small-sided games that we call them. So you have like 4v4s, 5v5, 6v6s that you get on maybe -4, actually -4. So we will there get most of the explosive distance, most of the acceleration, deceleration they need for the game. Then -3, you get the more bigger games, bigger small-sided games. They still call small-sided games, but the bigger ones where you get more of the high-speed running, zone 6, volume, you get more of your distances in. So that's how we try to get them ready. So through through football games. So through football drills, which are games. So we try to get them as much as possible through those. Of course, there are then like tactical drills and just positional drills and every individual drills and stuff like that that you will get as well. But we try to have we've tried to get them as much as possible through football
Through
games.
football. So it's
Yeah,
more getting ready for their sport with their sport,
exactly.
as
So
opposed
and exactly, and which is, I think, what, for example, in football culture does better than any other sport. That is
to.
something that, as much as I hate on it when it comes to on the culture when it comes to the strength training, I have to give the credits that they do it great. I think that's also, which I was thinking about it the other day. That's also the difference uh, in football. Sports science and strength and conditioning are unfortunately seen as the same field. I
Mhm.
think that's the difference. And in maybe in America or in England, sports science and strength and conditioning are maybe two different fields. So maybe the whole data analysis, the whole load management through GPS tracking falls into the sports science area, and more of the strength in the gym or like the drills or conditioning drills outside that are, again, they kind of do
Mm.
mix up, but that's more of the strength and conditioning thing.
Yeah,
That is more, it's a bit abstract from the football, and the sports science is more within the game. So our job here just kind of mixes, so we're doing both.
I've seen similar. There are some clubs that have two separate roles, but majority of the clubs are. If you're an S&C coach, you're also a sports scientist, and
Exactly.
vice versa. Which two very different jobs, very
Yes,
different
very,
jobs.
very, yeah,
But you're kind of just having to adapt to what you're given at that point. And because it's such a relatively new industry in Europe, it's kind of hard to trailblaze that way and just be like, no, this is a sole role. It's also hard to justify with the amount of money that teams have.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it depends on what you prioritize.
In terms of your complete program off season, so during that preseason, how do you break that down and how do you program your athletes to then make sure they're prepared for their games?
During We don't have a long off season anyway. So for example, summer we finish if we finish like around 1st of June, we are already back to preseason at end of June. So they get like 2 3 weeks. So in summer, a month in winter, and you want them. So with the whole, we as I said, the most important thing for us is to keep the athletes healthy, right? To keep them injury free. That's not priority number one. And with the amount of games and trainings they have non-stop, and like a lot of them also are national team players, so when there is an international break, they're actually with their national team and they play 3 games, 2 games, which is again like way,
Hmm.
it's a lot like intensity as well. So for me, it's, you have to make sure that they get their free time as well, right? Like where they do nothing, both psychologically and physically. That's very, very important for to keep them healthy, and keep them healthy again physically and psychologically. I think the psychology part is underrated, but they are very much like connected. So if they get off season for 2 3 weeks, or they get 2 weeks, what do you want to do? Give them more runnings? Like For me, if they get 2 weeks, go. Like the first week, don't do anything. Like
Hmm.
stay away from work or training and whatever.
Just recover.
Go away, you recover, have fun, enjoy your time with family, enjoy your time with friends, go travel, go do whatever that has nothing to do with football, right? So you get a complete reset. If it's only 2 weeks, well, you usually get 3 weeks. Like the second week, you want them to start like just maybe doing some running, like just nothing intense, no intensity, just for them to start moving again, some mobility works, just start using their body again. And then if you get a third week, which you don't always have the privilege, you want them. So we're talking about off season. You want them to have some runs in, not just have aerobic runs where you just run the same tempo for I don't know 45 minutes. Like that doesn't bring them anything if they come back. So you want to have some stop and go in their program, some sprints, like just get them ready, get their bodies ready for so when they do come to the preseason, that their body doesn't go in shock. The same thing in strength as well. So you want them to start with the more general strength work and then give them a bit more specific ones before they come. But again, the general ones I think should have some amount of heavy lifting, some amount of fast lifts, and some amount of plyometrics at least, and all of them like in and mobility and core work and just stuff like that as well. And that also just slowly build that up so when they do come, their muscles are like they're not their body is not shocked physically.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's the off season. But I would give them as like the more free I can give them, and I can plan these stuff. If I can make it as short as possible, this phase, and give them a longer time, a longer free time, I would do it. Like
Mhm.
that's my approach. But at the same time, you want them when you don't want them to come back in the first week of preseason. They're like I don't know, you have 10 players with muscle issues, right? Like even small ones.
Mhm.
Oh, that's it's overworked and like that there. So I think to find the balance between giving them free and making sure they come back and they can tolerate the demands of the sport, especially in preseason, I think that's the most important thing.
So during the off season or preseason, how would that look like day to day for
All
the
right, so
athlete?
yeah, so preseason is a whole different game, right? Preseason is hell. You have so much running to do. So that's where it's also difficult to for me. They have so much running to do, so much football to do. You go on training camps where you train almost every day. You have double sessions every day, and it's continuously football, football, football. A lot of running. So you have to find a balance. So you don't want the strength to take a back. I don't want the strength to get up and
Mhm.
take a back seat, right? Because ideally, I want the strength. I want to use the preseason to build up the strength. But there is so much running going on that if I also start progressively overloading the strength part, it's again counterproductive, right? So to find a balance of again, this is where you have to have the humility to be like, all right, my strength is gonna take a backseat to their running. So making sure that they get their strength and you set them up so that you set them up well within the strength without overworking them so they can still tolerate the demands and the volume of running and training games that they have during preseason so that when that is over you can start doing your strength work and slowly by microdosing it later you can maybe get what you want. But this is what makes it very difficult in football to do the strength work. You don't have any time like in any like other sports where you can actually build the tolerance and build that overall strength of an athlete and then have them and then you don't have that to work that specifically. You can just as I said earlier, like you take what you can get and do the best with it. There is no optimal periodization for it,
Mhm.
unfortunately. Like you can just be like, okay, this is the best I can do with it, but there is no optimal in my opinion. So that's how the preseason basically works. I think I don't know if I went to enough details, but yeah, if you have any
No, no.
question regarding that.
Yeah, no. So for me, it goes back to this whole what the science is compared to
Yeah,
what the
no,
coaching life really is, and
no,
it's back to that notion of you can read a piece of research, it may be the best thought out bit of research, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to apply to coaching. So recently what I've been doing when I'm reading articles is like I'll create like a whole document of how could that be applied realistically with demands of different sports, and then from that I decide, is this a good paper or a bad paper? Now it's very
Yeah,
subjective because it's my opinion on its effectiveness. But it gets me to think of, okay, this is really good, really like a nice method to think about, but is that applicable?
yeah,
If it's not, then I just it can't be used. But if it's the decent standard that I can apply it to an actual season and sort of the athlete demands, because like again, so much goes into it. Media day goes into it, photo ops, injuries, niggles, anything can happen to an athlete on the preseason or off season that you don't have all that time. You need to be able to be flexible to be like, okay, this happened. I'm not going to do this. What else can I do instead?
exactly. And not like don't, not necessarily have a hill to die on, right? So I think
We spoke
if you
about that
have,
as well.
yeah, it's like maybe a couple of things. Like I think it's important, like a couple of principles that you think is important and you truly believe in, yes. But if you have a lot of them, I don't think you'll be successful in this, or like you're like, this is the way and that's the only way I'm gonna go. I think if you have a lot of those, you're like in the practical world, you're not gonna succeed because you might have a whole week like planned out training, both strength, condition, periodization, everything perfect. You come in and the head coach like, nah, I'm gonna do some.
I,
We
I
have to
don't
do more
like it.
football. Yeah, or like he doesn't even wait for it. He just comes in. He's like, oh, this is what we're supposed to. This is what we're gonna do because I think this is more important. What you gonna do? Like just be like, I never mind. I have to, I guess. I cannot do this perfect program that I've made. So I think if that's also a skill, like to be able to be like, oh shit, yeah, okay, then I can still do these stuff and I can still do that to get that. Or like you again, you have everything planned out. Your player comes in, you're like, and I kid you not, like this has happened. After yet the day before, after training, nothing. During training, nothing. They wake up, they have the biggest like pain, and they cannot move their knee, and you're like, what? Like they went the whole training without a problem. They didn't have any problem afterwards. They slept, they woke up. Now you have to be like, all right, then no lifting for you today. But we'll see what we can do, what we can do the next days, and so on. And you, that's why your whole maybe 4 week plan that you would have had. Oh, this week would have been the peak, and then the next week would have
Mhm.
deload, and then we would have started the next cycle. You can throw all those stuff out if you cannot be flexible with it. So
100%.
it, like if you have too many hills to die on, it's.
In saying that, what is the hill you would die on?
I think I don't remember what I told you last time, so I hope it's the same one. So then I think well my hill to die on in football, like I think just in my line of work is how important and how underrated plyometrics are in both
That's a
in lift and lifting weights. Like the way, like these two, like plyometrics is maybe, yeah, I don't think it's a more a heel to down. It's more like it's undervalued, it's underrated. It doesn't get as much attention as it should. But the heel to down that you need to lift weights. And I'm not talking about bodybuilding, hypertrophy. I just mean like
Mhm.
lifting weights is good for you if you do it the right way. And that in football is a heel down. You need to lift in season. Like I don't get people who don't lift in season and be like, oh, I need to, I don't want to get injured. It was like, yes, that's why you need to lift. Like
Mhm.
this whole association of lifting heavy weights and getting injured is, I think, very outdated in football. It's like
Yep.
from 1980s.
It's
No,
more that hybrid between all the different elements that you need. Like I think we spoke about this, but it's like having those different buckets and what your athlete actually needs to create like a sort of armor around them throughout
yeah,
the preseason, so that within the season and the games you can get chipped away, but you can maintain and build that protectiveness around it
yeah,
every single sort of
yeah.
week.
I think like you can't do like as I said like sometimes some pre like I've been. three preseasons now with the first team, and I would say maybe one of them I managed to like really build an armor when it comes to strength training. Like let's just stay at strength training. The other ones I couldn't because there was so much game. There were so many games and so many trainings that like you didn't have any window of opportunity to even do strength training. So I was trying to give them literally just a couple of lifts within the week so that when we do start lifting, when we have the time, that they don't have a lot, they don't get too sore and they're like it's not like the stress is not too new for them, right? So that it doesn't interfere again with the football training and the game, the next games. But what I've been able to do, and what you can do, is to build that armor within season. You don't have to do it in preseason in football. Like again, you can do that in other sports because you have a very long off season and a much shorter in season. But in football, you have almost 9 months of in season and 3 months of preseason, or maybe
Yeah,
like 2 months of preseason and 1 month of off season in a year. So those 9 months, you can build strength, you can build speed, you can. It's not. It's gonna take way longer. You have to, and it's gonna be. It will just need more time, and you have to be more patient with it. But it's possible. Both, if you want to upper body, let's say armor, if you want to improve your max strength and your peak force, if you want to improve your rate of force development, if you want to be able to sprint faster, jump higher. These are all possible within within the season if you manage it well, if you periodize it well, if you mix it well with the football training. You can even get like some of the activations or some of the high intensity things that you need to happen within the football training as well. So if you're able to mix it well with each other, I think you can do that in season, and you can only do it in season. I think in football, it's
yeah.
almost impossible to do it in preseason because of again everything that we talked about, and then make sure it's okay. Make sure like it's maintained just through that the whole season. It's impossible. It's too long.
I mean, fortunately, I've never had to coach football athletes, so I'm not.
Fortunately,
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of football. I will admit,
you're
I don't
missing
like
out,
all
man.
the diving. I don't like the diving.
We
uh,
can get into that, but yeah,
like in saying the preseasons, and a lot of it depends from coaching staff and how much turnaround time you have as well. So I've had a month to prepare athletes for a whole season. Now, your normal periodization blocks don't work within a month.
yeah,
So I ended up having to break it down like, okay, Monday we do power and plyometrics and all that stuff because it's more of that. No, what was no. It was strength because that's more dom related. Wednesday it was more like your conditioning stuff, and then Friday was more power based, like neurological, um, fast twitchy things, so you can get ready for the games. So I had to break that down and within the season of a season of a month. So it goes back to that, like you need to be on your toes all the time.
yeah. And you can macro those, and you can like they say uh, like the hardest thing to train is speed, right? Like they say
Mhm.
it's the it's the one thing that it maybe like if you can increase it by 5%, you're doing a great job, and it takes the longest time. But if I think if you microdose it right with the whole ups and downs and everything, and you need to be fresh and so on, which are all correct, but you don't get that. You know,
No,
it's not you're not in a lab. You're not in a lab where you have all the optimal, perfect conditions and so on. You don't get that. So you have to
every
do with
little
what you
variable
have.
is accounted for.
Exactly. But I've still been able to increase their max speed within the season, in season.
Hmm.
So it is possible, but it just takes way longer. You just have to be way more patient. You have to you have to be flexible. You have to take what they give you, and sometimes it works, sometimes no. Just yeah, you just have to be on top of it all the time to make sure that you get an effect. And it just makes it basically more difficult because there are so many variables
Hmm.
you need to pay attention to. But when you're in it and it's rolling, I mean, you just kind of get used to it, and you have the variables, and you're kind of adapting to them automatically.
100%. What are your coaching must-haves within a program?
So are we talking about strength? I think it's
Just
important.
can be strength,
Must
power,
have.
speed. endurance,
Uh,
conditioning, whatever? What are
um,
your must-haves?
so let's say at football, like we are staying with football, right? Within everything, right? Because I think different athletes they need different stuff. Sprint, they need to sprint. I mean, the good thing again with the GPS, you can see how many times they sprint during training and so on. But they're like the metrics also, you have to define it as well, right? But I think they should come close or 90% to their max speed at least once or twice a week. Like I liked it about two, three times. Depends on how many match minutes, game minutes they're getting. Right. The less they get, the more I would like to have that. The more matches they play, I don't do any supplementation because they'll have it at least once during the game. Right. So 90% of your max speed at least once or twice in the week. Um, Plyometrics, that's like that's also the players like that's also one of the things that they have seen most they've seen most results from, and they can feel it and they are happy with it. When it comes like to plyometrics, you can also do it great with activation and just like having microdosing through it and for injury prevention. I think it's super important. And if your whole program or like your strength and conditioning program doesn't have plyometrics in it, I think it's not a good one. Then I would say lifts, making sure you lift heavy. I think that's very important. You must have that. Uh, but I don't like volume. So if I see a lot of volume in your lifts and generally in your strength work in a football team program or maybe individually, someone needs it. But if I see that again, I'm not a fan. So lift heavy, lift fast, or just like have lifts that might not be as heavy, but that you create a lot of impulse because I think that's
Mm.
very important. So you have that in there, then I think these are my must-haves. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
What's your what's your reasoning for the volume? Not like
The fatigue induce it's fatigue inducing, and you have so much volume as a football player already throughout
mm,
your week that I don't see the benefit of the volume. Like, why do you want to do volume? Like, you have so much like you have so much volume of strength as well when it comes to the acceleration, deceleration, change of direction, sprinting, that you don't need volume for your legs. Like, and if and also someone says hypertrophy, like you still get hypertrophy if you're lifting heavy. You do 2 times 5, trust me, and you're not used to, you still get that effect, right? And you're still gonna build muscles. And if you sleep well, if your diet is right, and if you're lifting weight and you're doing your training, you're still gonna build muscles and lose fat and all of that. I don't see a reason why, as a football player, you need a lot of volume, especially legs, for your legs. I
mm,
don't like what's the benefit? It's fatigue
yeah,
inducing, and it will just make you more tired, and your the injury risk is higher.
yeah. So
I
it's
think
kind
it has
of
its place, maybe, but just generally,
yeah.
I'm not a fan.
So you're coming from a standpoint of they already get so much volume within their training that adding more volume is just another stressor that they might not necessarily need as much as strength, power, and all the other elements.
Yeah, my thing is, again, is we are not talking about an optimal one, right?
Mm,
We are talking about doing the best that we can and getting the best with what we have, like being as efficient and productive as with as much little time as we get with them, right? And I just don't see the benefit of having so much volume on your legs, as efficient or productive. I,
mm,
I'm, again, I'm not saying it's for nobody should. That's what I'm not saying. I'm just like, I'm sure there are
time
people
and
and there are
place. Yeah.
situations you need it. There's a time and place for it, sure. But I think the effect that you would get from volume, most of the time, you will have that effect throughout everything else that you're doing,
Hmm.
and that you can get way more benefit and way better results for what you want, what your goals are, throughout other methods and not other methods and not volume necessarily.
Yeah, I agree. I
It's
agree.
just counterproductive, from in my opinion.
Mm. So yeah, I agree. It's kind of looking at what volumes they're already doing, and you don't want to add additional stressors to what they're already doing a lot of. So it's that the injury risks go up. You're more likely to burn an athlete out as well.
Yeah, and you lift 3 times, I don't know, 10, you do 3 times 10 squats, deep squats. And he goes out and runs first day. He runs 5 kilometers, second day. And right after he has to go out and run 5 kilometers, he's already tired, right? Legs are tired. He's feeling it. He goes out fatigued. He has to do that. Next day, he has to run another 6 kilometers, maybe. And then and 2 days after that is when the down, like the delayed onset, the muscular soreness comes in. It's like 2 days after, so he's basically like done within the week.
Yeah,
So I just don't see it. Like I don't I don't
yeah,
see how that maybe in off season, but I would prefer, like, even in off season, I would prefer I build up your power rather than anything else.
mhm,
Like, get you lift heavy, lift fast, those heavy weights as fast as possible, get your power going on. And sometimes you need more muscles, and sometimes you need volume for some people to be able to generate more power. So that I'm not saying again.
yeah.
I'm
It's
not
all
saying
about the
it's I'm
intent
not,
of what you're wanting to do. Like
and what you
if
have,
look,
and what you have,
yeah, 100%.
100%. Yeah.
What is your go-to song during a PR lift?
Can I check?
Of
I don't
course.
remember. Right now.
We've had
Right now.
some questionable choices by different coaches.
Hey man,
Um,
come on. Right now, I would go with Fredo. Everybody knows.
everybody knows. By who?
Yeah, it's Fredo, a UK artist. He's from the.
Okay. Different. I've not heard that song, so I'll have a listen to it as
Yeah,
well.
it's right now again. My PR changes because I need that new stressor to get my. I cannot have the
Get
same
some
song
overload.
for. Yeah, like at some point I get used to the song and it just doesn't have the same effects. I need new ones. So right now it would be that.
Fair, fair. Thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure having you on, and I mean we've
Thank
already
you for
done this.
having me. Yeah.
So it was just a great catch up as well. Is there anything that you kind of want to plug and where people can reach you?
Oh yeah, I mean, you have my Instagram. It's Paiam point Yaz, and yeah, no, that's it. Thank you for having me. Lovely conversation. It's always nice to talk about stuff that we are both passionate about with someone who is also passionate and understands you, and you can have those conversations. And also, it's always also nice to have people disagree with you, so you just can learn
Mm,
more from them. Yeah, no, I hope I really enjoyed this, and I hope the viewers enjoy it as well. Thank you for
definitely.
having me.
No, I highly agree with also disagreeing and looking at different standpoints to coaches. Like I'll sometimes try and play devil's advocate and just be like, okay, but what if you do this instead? How would that change it? So I
Yeah,
do think it's important to question each other as well and just look for a justification. Like I like to
yeah,
know that the coaches are doing that thing because there's actual reason behind it, not
yeah,
just
yeah,
because yeah, I saw that somewhere.
yeah. No, justification is the most important thing. Like you can always do what you think is right, but as long as you have a reason for what you do, I think you're in a good hands. I think that's important.
100%. 100%. No, I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you
And
very much for having me.
we still need to meet up again in Vienna and go to the
100.
gym.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Whenever you're here, hit me up.
I think I'm actually going across August sometime.
Oh,
I think I'm
that
back
might.
August.
Yeah. Let me know what date. I might not be here, but let me know what date.
Okay,
All
cool.
right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Peace.